In this video, we're going to take a look at the process for creating a suspended ceiling, such as those commonly found in light commercial spaces or perhaps a residential basement. Let's go into the program and get started. In this sample office space that I have open, I want to create a suspended ceiling. Let's begin by taking a look at a section view of the existing design. I'm going to use the back clip cross-section camera. I'm going to come in and create a section view, and then let's also tile our screen so we can see exactly what we have going on. In the section view on the right hand side of the screen, you can see that we have a standard ceiling height that has a flat ceiling. I want to go in and create a suspended ceiling that's lowered about 36 inches that will accommodate enough room for the heating and ventilation. To do that, let's go into the plan view, double click, and open up the room specification. First step, I'm going to increase the ceiling height from 10 foot to 12 foot by putting in plus 24 inches. I'll press the tab key. You can see the diagram update off to the side. And now the next step is underneath the ceiling information, I'm going to come down to the ceiling finish, click edit. Currently I have two layers. One is the drywall at 5/8. The next is the paint layer, which has no thickness. To create a 36-inch space, I'm going to go ahead and click on the pattern material, and I'm going to find an insulation air gap. You'll find that right in the insulation category. I'm going to come down to air gap, which is nothing but a blank space. I'm going to give it a thickness of 35.5 inches. Next, I'm going to come down for the material that's currently being used as the paint. I'll double click, and I want to replace this material with the ceiling tile. I'm going to come up, I'm going to use the search term ceiling tile, go ahead and select the rectangular ceiling tiles, and then I'm going to set the thickness at a 1/2 inch. That's going to give me a total of 36 inches into that space. Let's go ahead and close the diagram. Take a look at the section view. You can now see that this area down here has automatically increased to 24 inches and we've lowered the ceiling. Let's go ahead and turn on the roof tool. I'm going to go into the build roof, and let's just put a simple roof on here that has a very shallow pitch. I'm going to come in here and turn on my automatic roof. You can see my pitch in here is a 1/4 inch, and I've already set this up to have a shed style roof with a very small slope. So we've created a suspended ceiling. And now if we were to go in and take a 3D view inside of our plan, let's go ahead and use our camera, point and click. In the 3D view you can see the ceiling grid that we've created. Now if you want to go in the process of adding the details, I zoom in here a little bit and determine what the offset is and do a little bit of electrical work. Let me close the section view, and for your 3D views, to create this material so that the pattern may start back in this corner, let's go through the process of how to do that and use the offset of the material properties. In my experience, the easiest way to figure this out is to use the tape measure tool. Temporarily, I'm going to paint the wall back here to have the ceiling grid tiles on it. I'm going to use the material eyedropper. I'm going to paint it on the wall. And now I can take a section view of that wall and figure out what the offsets are for that material to make the change. Over in the floor plan view, I'm going to use the section camera and just take a section of that wall. You see the pattern on the wall. I actually want to view the texture or the image on the wall. Let's go ahead and change the camera to the standard camera view. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to toggle on my crosshairs so you can see exactly what we're going to do to measure this. First step I want to figure out is what's the distance between the sheetrock finish and this grid on the ceiling tile. Let's use our tape measure tool, and I'm going to come over here, I'm going to snap onto the sheetrock, and I'm just going to slide this over until I pick up the dimension, and we're going to call that about 1.5 feet. Next, let's do the same thing for the ceiling. Let's come down, pull this down until we get to that point, and I'm going to call that about 1.5 feet. Using the Adjust Material Definition tool you'll find up here in your menu, I'm going to go ahead and click on this material. I'm on the texture panel. There's also the pattern. On the texture panel, the first thing I'm going to do is come over here and keep the pattern and texture in sync. The texture is the image, pattern is the 2D representation of the vector style of that tile. Now I'm going to come into the horizontal offset, and I'm going to put in the value that we had in there, which was 1 foot or 12.5 inches. That was in a negative value because I'm going to pull that tile over to the left. On the vertical offset, I'm going to come in here and put in 12 inches and 5/8. Go ahead and press the Tab key. Since the pattern and texture are in sync, I don't have to make that same change on this panel as well. We'll close the dialog, and it looks like we have that accurate. Let's go back into our 3D view and take a look. Now that I have that material adjusted, let's go ahead and use the material eyedropper, come back, repaint the wall to the same paint color, and the final step is to put a couple of lights in here and then fill the space. Let's go back over to our floor plan view. The first thing I'm going to do is change my plan view to the electrical view. Let's open up our library catalog. Inside of our catalog, underneath architectural, underneath lighting, you're going to find a folder for tube lighting, and specifically I'm just looking for a tube light. Might be an LED panel. I'm going to come over and click and place it in the approximate location. As we zoom into this, I'll use my dimension tool, specifically the center line dimension tool. I'm going to come down, run a dimension to the center of the light in both directions. Then I'm going to use the light dimension, and we're going to set this with the initial coordinates. Now, if I've done my math right, in theory this should be 5 foot in this direction and 6 foot 1 in this direction to accommodate for that ceiling grid tile offset. Let's go back into the 3D view and take a look. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to use my array copy and fill this space. I'm going to go ahead and use the multiple copy tool. You'll find that in your lower edit menu. We'll go ahead and click, and then I'm going to use the load intervals. I'm going to make sure that in the first direction I put in 144 inches or 12 feet, and then 6 feet in the other direction. Move my cursor over the center. You'll notice it change. I'm going to hold my right mouse button down. When I get to the end, release. Then I'm going to pull my mouse down, fill the space, and then I'm going to left click. We have a little bit of extra space over in there. Let's go ahead and take a 3D view and see what this looks like in this space. So you can see, using that electrical multiple copy, we filled the space inside the grids by setting the dimension for the first light, making sure that it matched the grid takeoff, and that's the process if you want to create your suspended ceiling and match it in your 3D view. Thanks for watching the video.